Welcome everybody to another Observability Expert Insight series, and our current series is Effective Security Troubleshooting with Secure Application or Secure App and Splunk AppDynamics. We are joined today again with our expert speaker, Senthil Arunagiri Nathan, and he's our local SME on the Secure App functionality and the integration with Splunk AppDynamics. And has a lot of background and clout that I can go over, but I know you guys are itching to get more into the topic, so I won't spend too much time there. Let's go ahead and start going over some housekeeping items. So there is an assumption that we want to maintain with those that join or those that are watching us on the recording. We want to make sure that you understand that we do angle this content from a point of view that we assume you guys know a little bit of AppDynamics and are just wanting to start expanding on your knowledge of AppDynamics and utilizing the secure app functionality that is easy to integrate and start utilizing it right away, start getting the benefit from a security point of view. Very important stuff. And then we also want to make sure that we are muting the mics on all of our attendees. I believe you guys all are forced into it. I'm just letting you guys know that it will stay that way, but we do want to take questions. So Q&A is the best place to put it. It'll allow everybody to see what you write and what the question is. The answer is in response. But if you type it into chat, or if you need to let us know, hey, microphone or sound isn't good or something along those lines, definitely let us know in the chat. We'll try to make sure to address those things. And then there is also the disclaimer of, this information is meant for, us to help you with learning Splunk AppDynamics and the integration with the Secure App. But it also means that it's not meant for you to just go and take and recreate or repurpose or anything like that. Oh, and I did realize, I think I skipped over my own introduction. I'm sorry. I'm your host today, Christopher Bonanno, and we're over here at the Cisco Observability side of things for customer success, and we want to try to help you guys be successful. And without further ado, Senthil, take us away.
Thank you, Chris. So you're able to hear me, Chris?
Yep, perfect.
Great. All right. So welcome back, everybody. Good afternoon and good evening. I hope last week's session was useful. So we basically introduce you all to secure application, kind of slowly, gradually, and all that. Didn't want to overload you all with a lot of information. Today, though, given that you've already undergone the intro, I guess you're all ready to soak up more information. Right. So with that, the focus today is on less slides and more demo. All right. So hopefully you like that. Right. So what we're going to do is we'll have a quick recap. Right. So now for those of you who are like, oh, was that a session last week? Don't worry. We'll have a quick recap, and we'll as well see whether we have some more time at the end to kind of add to whatever demos we did last week, repeat it as needed, if need be, all right, on request. Use that Q&A, right, which is bottom right-hand corner, 3 dots, right? Click on that, you'll see Q&A, all right? Okay, so we'll have a brief recap as we talked about, and then we'll discuss how Secure Application integrates with other tools and its reporting capabilities, right? So what we saw last week, the focus was on how AppDynamics and Secure Application are kind of seamlessly integrated to kind of provide this single pane of glass for you, all right? End-to-end observability, like across security and application performance, all that, right? So now it's how do we get data which Secure Application provides to any other centralized system that you may already have, right? That. And after that, we'll delve into how Secure Application detects and blocks attacks, right? So now the thing is, we mentioned about this capability that Secure Application has, but we didn't quite dive into it like we actually did for the vulnerability detection functionality of the Secure Application, right? So today, I'll let you know more about this detection and blocking of attacks. And lastly, we'll conclude with a live demonstration of the features discussed and application of how you would go about using secure application to solve real issues, right? How would you go about using it typically, right? So that's the plan for the day, all right? Okay, here is the recap, like as promised, right? We said secure application is a foundational runtime protection framework. It kind of works on the running application, your running application. Now, if you want something simpler, a definition of that would say, hey, it's an application security testing tool, which provides quite a few security tool functionalities, right? Kind of like the software composition analysis to some extent. I asked interactive application security testing tools functionality a bit, and then the runtime application self-protection angle to it. Okay, so that's that. And the core capability which we mentioned was that it utilizes a runtime agent architecture for threat detection. And we went on to say, kind of repeatedly say, if you would, that you know what? You don't have to install a separate agent for this, right? We just piggyback on the APM agent that you have already installed, configured, and using, all right? So that's the big win there, right? The secure application doesn't take much for you to get going with it, hit the ground running with it, right? So that provides real-time application monitoring, right? Now, the key benefits, we did talk about lots of them, and then that's just to highlight, it has automated security integration workflows. We kind of touched upon it. Now I'll show that today, right? Now, this is also going to enhance your vulnerability management process, right? Now, we talked about this detection of vulnerabilities last week, and we said, hey, how is this special, right? Well, it's not going to detect vulnerabilities in your dead code, unused libraries, and all that. No. Why? It works against your runtime application. Only the libraries that are being loaded, classes that are being used, methods that are being called, only the vulnerabilities in those are detected and reported, not dead code, unused libraries where you would, oh my God, it has priority critical, right? And work on that. Wouldn't even know that that library was just packaged in that repository of yours sitting there. Nobody cleaned it up and there's no point in you fixing it, right? Anyway, so those are some of the benefits we talked about, right? So now, quick recap on the steps to enable again. This is mainly aimed at folks who may not have joined last week's session. Quickly, you don't need a separate APM agent, a separate agent. You just make use of the AppDynamics APM agent. Yes, you need a license. You may have to create roles and then assign some permissions for the security functionality, view or configure as the case may be. And then you make a decision on what applications you want to enable the secure app functionality, right? And then I'll talk about that and demonstrate that as to how many different ways there are to enable that. Like we're wondering, why do I need different ways, right? Well, we just provide different levels of control, right? Do you want to enable it for all your applications? This 1, 2 applications? No, right? Okay, only some services in your application? No, you want to start off with one of the nodes on that service, do you? Okay, all right, we'll get you going there, right? So all that, and then as it always is the case, when you do something, what do you need to do? Check whether what you did really worked. And then here are some of the tips here, once you do that, in about an hour or so after you enable the secure application, you got to see whether there are security events which are showing up in your familiar application dashboard or the business transaction dashboard and so forth. That security information should show up where you are looking at already, not going hunting for, right? That's the main benefit of this integration, right? And then you can ask, well, kind of drill into the security dashboard and then look for more information. Hey, does it list all the libraries which has vulnerability? That's why I'm using the secure application. That's why I enabled that functionality, right? Go check that, see whether you see those, should be able to see those in an hour or so. Well, unless of course you don't see any libraries because you have environment and application where everything is pristine, right? Everything is secure, no vulnerabilities. Well, wish that were true. Let me know if you guys are there. Okay. All right. So next up, integrations reporting, right? So now again, to automate your export of vulnerability data, attack data, or for automated reporting needs, right? The Secure App provides APIs that you can use, right? Use the API and get all vulnerability data and whatever else you need, right? And also at that point, I think I want to mention the Secure App also provides the APIs to just enable or disable applications as the case may be, right? Now, if you're wondering, yeah, I understand, vulnerability data, that could be a lot of data, right? So I understand that why I need to use an API to get all the data, right? So why do I need an API to enable or disable secure application, right? Now, we have customers who have about 3,000 applications on which secure application is enabled. Now, how do we do that then? Well, just go to a UI and just go click one at a time and then enable them? Well, that should be a better way, right? That's this better way, right? Anyway, so workflow automation using HTTP actions, right? That's something which we provide, which essentially is a way to integrate the secure application or the events, if you would, from the secure application with any centralized repository you have to capture all security data for actionable analysis and all that, right? So we provide means for you to do that based on several events, and I will demonstrate that functionality. All right. So now then you say like, hey, you know what, all this API is all good. Yes, I can integrate with the HTTP based on some event as in some vulnerability being detected, right? But you know what, I also want this simple stuff, right? I'm looking at the dashboard. I have been asked to, gather the names of all the applications for which secure application has been enabled, right? Can I do that, right? Or can I just get all the vulnerabilities for my specific application? I just want to download it, yeah, you can do that. You can do that, right? You can do that, and we give that to you in CSV and JSON format. So, you got to use one of those to do whatever you want to do, right? All right. So now we offer seamless integration with SIEM tools, Splunk is one, obviously, right? Well, Splunk is part of Cisco. But again, you see, the integration itself has nothing to do with Splunk. It's just an HTTP-based interface. You can just integrate with any tool. Yes, if you integrate by Splunk and integrate with Splunk, we're going to be happy because it's part of Cisco. All right. So all that integration and reporting features are some things that I would be demonstrating when we get to the demo. Now, but before we get to the demo itself, right, if you kind of say, hey, what are these high-level steps, that we need to take? Yes, you can demo. Is it going to be a 30-minute demo on just that functionality, or is it going to be something quick? Can you just share with me what are the high-level steps involved? Well, here we go. We call that alerts, right? Now, so some events, trigger these things which we call alerts, and based on those alerts, you have an option to gather the data which is relevant to that alert and then send it to wherever you want it to go, right? Your endpoint, your webhook, whatnot, right? So here's what you do. You go to alert screen, which we will do in the demo, as I said, right? And then you click on HTTP and click add action. You're creating an action, right? And then choose various variables, HTTP, whatnot. I'm going to read through everything here. We're going to see that. And then method type is post, and you have an option to choose one of these three different authentication types, or I should say one of these two types of authentication, because the other one is not an authentication. You don't have anything. All right. I don't know why you would do that. If at all you're testing something, maybe that's only when I guess you should be using that. All right. So next you have an option to include custom headers. If your endpoint needs some header which says something like, where is it coming from? It's coming from CSA, create a header and say the source of CSA or something like that. You can just add any arbitrary header with data that you think your endpoint needs. All right. So, and the payload is JSON, and then, we have some easy way and variables for you to conveniently pick that data up. Okay. All right. So we'll see all that in the demo, all right? Now, we're looking at attack detection and blocking. So this is something that we kind of mentioned as a functionality, but we didn't kind of dive into it, okay? So here, in addition to vulnerabilities, secure application can actually detect any attacks coming in, right? So any remote code execution, right? So now about 4 years ago, right, there was this log4j libraries vulnerability. It was named log4 shell. Most of you in the security world would know that. Yeah, you could, any such attack using such vulnerability, right? You can detect that as well. And then detect and do what? You say, well, detection is the first step, right? You should know that, there are attacks coming in. So you can analyze them, and then the next step is what do you do about it, right? And then, well, one of the answers would be like, oh, go about patching it, right? Yeah, good, right? The other one would be like, yeah, I'm ready to patch, I want the patch, but one, patch is not there, not available. What do you do? Second, patch is available, but based on the process, the fastest time for any patch application for us is a week. What do you do? Okay, what do you do? Get attacked for a week? No. Bring down the application for a week? No, right? So what you do is create a policy in secure application which effectively blocks such attacks, right? So buys time, okay, for your developers, DevOps teams and whatnot, so that they can follow the due process and, test it and all that with the patch. Make sure the application is actually working after you apply the patch. If the application is so secure that the application doesn't even get up, well, that's not going to be good, right? Anyway, so that's your detection and blocking, all right? So it captures complete attack information and provides complete threat visibility, all right? So that's something which we will see in the demo as well, all right? So now see, as promised, we are here already, okay? So now again, this is kind of the second session, right? And we're building on what we learned last time. So that's why, we'll steer clear of too many slides, and then we'll get to actual demo, all right? Okay, so ready for the demo now? All right, so we're going to go, so this is this AppDynamics screen that most of you will be familiar with. And you actually see the security navigation link on the left, right? So I'm going to click on that. So remember, I was saying that you don't need any separate agent for a secure application, and you need a license. Well, that's why you were able to get here. This person has this license, right? And then the next step was, after, permissions and whatnot, to enable secure application for your AppDynamics managed application, right? So I promise that we'll look at several ways of doing that, right? Here, go to administration. So now again, this person who's able to do that, this alerts, policies, and administration has the configure secure app permission, not just view. If you just have the view only permission, then you would only see these menus, these navigation links, all right? So I just have a couple of different demo instances to show you what you will see if you have just view secure application permission versus when you have configure secure application permission, which is effectively these three things and certain other functionality in here, all right? Okay, so now we are talking about how to enable secure application, right? So it enables secure application for all of your applications in AppDynamics managed application. Now, so this is just the instance which we have, local lab instance. So we have enabled it to show that you can do that. But unless this controller of yours is for a non-production dev, something like that, lower environment, I wouldn't recommend you do this, okay? So now the thing is, like, as always, right, when you're enabling any new functionality, for any of your applications, you got to be careful. You want to just check it out, what happens in a low environment, enable it, not for all the applications, but maybe just a couple, maybe. All right, so that's what I would recommend, but I just want to let you know that there is this big switch at the top where you can turn it off for everything. How about that? So that's probably what it is meant for. You enable it for a handful of them, and for whatever reason, you want to quickly disable everything. So you know what to do here. Okay, so now we set the big switch, and I recommended that you just go maybe one application at a time, right? So I clicked on the applications here, and then you see a list of applications. And let's kind of see here, security status. I'm going to filter by whether there is any application here where it is disabled. Okay, there it is. So this application, the secure app functionality is not enabled. Okay. So now there are multiple ways to enable it. Like again, I promised to show you multiple ways to, one, pick and choose what you like to do. Two is what level you want to enable it or disable it. Okay. So this is one way. I can just enable it like that, right? And then you ask, hey, what does this inherit mean? The inherit inherits the enable or disable value of the parent. Okay. Now then you'd say, okay, who is the parent for this application? What is the parent for this application? Now this big switch out there, right? That's the parent. All right. All right. So let me go there one more time. Security status, and I filter by disable, and I can basically just say inherit or just enable. Okay. Again, as you can imagine, there are use cases that you want to do inherit, right? If you don't want to go on and enable, disable at multiple levels of depth, but instead you just want that to flow through the hierarchy, if you would, right? Then you would just choose inherit. In this case, if I inherit, the top level switch is on, so it will be enabled. Okay, but here I'm explicitly enabling it. All right, and then I am going to say security status and then disabled. Okay, so you see that. So that's how we enabled it. Okay, so now I mentioned that you could as well enable secure app at a more fine-grained level, right? What is the next fine-grained level after the application? In AppDynamics world, right? It's the tier, right? So now let's get in here to that application, and then you see all the tiers listed, right? So for whatever reason, right, or you are very cautious, well, maybe you're required to be cautious or even paranoid based on the nature of the application and the industry in which you are in, right? So you don't want to do it one application at a time. You want to do it one tier at a time, right? So there it is, right? So you could just go and then like say enable, disable, right, whatnot. Or you want to do for many of these tiers at the same time, like maybe 50% of the tiers, half of your application, right? So what do you do? Like this, that, ooh, okay, what did I do? I clicked on something, I think. Okay, so let me just go back here one more time, right? Go in and, right, it's just a little bit time. Yeah, so that I'm selecting like say 4 of these, right? And then how do I enable all of them at one time, right? You go here, there, right? So you can enable those, right? Or inherit, well, inherit is the current value. So there are multiple ways, as I was saying, right? So now let's go into this, right? If for whatever reason you want to do it at a node level, right? And let me just enable it for this one node, okay? So you know why? I just want to be really careful, okay? Because it's a very important application. Let me see how this works, okay? Good, go do that. Here we go, right? All right, so now you kind of get it, right? So the fine-grained control that we allow is to give you the flexibility on what you want to enable secure app for, where, how, whatnot, as in how is this inherit or enable, disable, all right? So complete flexibility, all right? So now again, I'm going to repeat what I mentioned earlier, right? Which is when I was talking about the secure application APIs, right? I said like they are mainly for all the data that you want to get, all the vulnerability related data, right? All the libraries which have vulnerabilities, that data, right? Now, I mentioned that there is secure app API to enable or disable the applications as well, right? So if you want to automate, that's the way to go. Remember the example I mentioned, like 3,000 applications. Do you want to go click through all these, right? Like, oh, I want that application, and that. Okay, and then what? It's going to take a lot of time, right? You have better things to do, right? Okay, so that is the demo of all the ways you can enable, okay, an application tier node for your secure application. All right. All right. So with that, let's jump on into the reporting functionality, right? So let's kind of use some simple reporting functionality, right? So let me see here. Okay, okay. So now, see, right now, I guess we enabled it for everything, right? Security status, everything is enabled. Well, yeah. So now again, let's say that you are being asked, okay, hey, give me a list of all the applications for which secure application has been enabled in our environment, okay? And then all you do is click on this, boom. And there it gives you a zip file, right? And then inside the zip file, you have data in two forms, same data in two forms. One is a CSV format, another is the JSON format, right? So now then you say, okay, all that is typically people don't ask me, right? I'm typically asked what libraries, right? Or let's say here, what libraries are having highest CVSS score, let's say, right? So now critical, give me the list of libraries, all right? And then you just export them, right? So now it's more likely is you'd get into an application, right? So basically you can select an application like here, all right? And then apply, all right? So now, so we can, as I said, get into these, and then you can actually look at the vulnerabilities and libraries per application, okay? Chosen application chosen here. And then basically have a filter on, say, the CVSS score, critical. So you see, this is typically what is likely to happen. So you're in charge of a particular application as an AppSec developer, right? And then you are asked to kind of produce the critical vulnerability list, and then you just get it and hand it to somebody, right? Anyway, so you could do the same thing with libraries, as you can imagine, selectively choosing, filtering, all that. So that's kind of some level of reporting functionality. So now you're thinking like, no, we automate everything, so I don't want this. We have a central place where all that information has to go to. Show me how we do that, right? Well, the way we do that is you click on this alerts. Now, remember, in order for you to click on this, you should be able to see this. To see this, you got to have the configure secure application permission. Okay. All right. So you're able to see it. You're able to click it. There it is, right? So now we want to send it to some endpoint of yours, right? Send what? Okay. Let's walk through this one, right? We say add an action. Okay. Send to my SIEM. All right. What do you want to send? Right. So do you want to send one type of vulnerability whenever a vulnerability is detected? Do you want that to be an event which triggers this alert, as in information sharing for based on that event? Business risk, right? So business risk is something we talked about. We said we provide a quantitative number to assess the risk of your business transactions, right? So you could basically use that as an event when for some reason the business transaction risk is critical suddenly, right? As you can imagine, the way that would happen is the library that is being used by your business transaction, there's a new vulnerability which has been detected in there, right? Right. Or there are other reasons too, likelihood of attack and all that, which is the Cisco vulnerability management integration with secure application, which will let secure application become aware of that. Or attack event, all right? So let's kind of say attack event, okay? All right, and then we created a name for that alert, and then we got to choose these, which are already chosen, right? It's not an option here, unfortunately. Then when you want to send data, then you got to know whether you want to to be sent for all the applications, which is the default. See that all applications will be selected by default. Okay. So, or you choose specifically that and that. Okay. And then you got to point to your endpoints URL, right? So, all right, just say that that's the .com, right? That's your endpoints URL, right? And then you, as I told you, this none is not an option to send such security related information to some central security place without even authenticating. Is not a good idea. This is just something for some quick test, maybe for a demo and stuff like that. So you would probably want to use this barrier token, most secure among all these, right? And this is my barrier token. There it is. Okay. All right. So, and here I mentioned that you could add some headers, right? So let's say if your endpoint needs some header, just informational header, right? Again, if your endpoint is going to rely on the header's value to do something material, as in like say authenticate based on the header, don't use this header, please. No, don't use that. Okay. X, let's say okay, CSA, okay, header name, and then the value is, in this case, for whatever reason, I'm just saying you can put in any value here, right? I'm just saying if you are chosen as per application based on your requirements, I can actually choose the application name for all you know here, right? Okay. So right now I'll just say a number 1000, right? That's it. But what I'm showing you here is when you're sending information based on these events, which we chose, right? We just chose one of the 3 events. You can supplement that information which is being sent with something else as well. All right. All right. So now here, and you'll understand why we had to kind of do that. Okay. Okay. So now here is the real information about the event. Okay. Now see here, you can get this information about the application. I copied the special variable, right? And then I can say application. Okay, so it's helping me and saying, hey, you need to have a double quote there. All right. And then here is the variable I copied. So basically I have a name value pair, right? Here it's going to get populated. This variable is going to do that, right? But as you can see, there are only a finite set of variables in here. Okay. Now, if you need to send more information, what do you do is the question, correct? So that is one reason why you would use these custom headers, create some header value, which your endpoint would know to look for, and then populate it with a value that you already know, if you do know at this point, right? Anyway, so that's what that is. So we are now at the last step of integrating with an endpoint, right? So that you can pump data from secure application to your central system, right? All right. So what happens here, right? With all the information we provided, it actually gives you a curl as well, right? Which you can use for your testing purposes. You see that? All the information that we gave, right? And then if you want to just like do, no, I wanted to do event type something else, not attack vulnerability. Yeah, just edit there and then take care of it. Oh, this token, no, there's a case issue here. It's all should be uppercase. Okay, take care of that. All right, the payload is that, and then we can save this. Boom. All right. So success created successfully. What got created successfully? This alert called send to my SEM event type attack. All right, this is your endpoint, right? And then what happens is a corresponding rule gets created, sent to my SEM. So now right now you can't create a rule. The rule is just created as an effect of you creating an action. All right. So now we are all set, right? Anytime a new attack is detected, what happens, right? All that information we saw, right? Which is here, right there. Okay. All that will be, this request will be fired to your endpoint with that payload. Of course, consider this as a payload as well. And that is what information exchange is and integration is, right? Anyways, that's the demo of how you integrate with external system, the secure application, to just share the information with any other system or push the information which Secure App identifies, detects, and all that stuff, or reports to a central repository. Okay. All right. So we talked about how to enable apps for Cisco Secure App. And then we also said like, hey, simple reporting functionality. There it is. So export all, of course, after using some filters that you may want, right, to make use of data. And then we said like the HTTP integration is basically covered under this alerts, right, which facilitates an HTTP based integration with some endpoint, right? Yes, they are called alerts and all, right? Similar thing, if you want just an email, you could just do that. Now, instead of you guys watching me typing, I can just like quickly show you what was typed already just to save some time. You could just have some email based on the event type, 3 event types, right? And then, so email, how often do you want that, right? And all the information, what all fields need to be sent in that email of yours, right? Just the application CVS score or CVS score, CVS severity, right? All that is going to be sent, and based on the frequency just that you choose, and your InfoSec team is going to get an email, right? Based on your choices here, all right? So you could do that. Yep. All right. So with that, I guess we are all set and ready to look at attacks. Okay. So we kept saying about this, talking about it. We said like, hey, it can detect vulnerability. The secure application can detect vulnerability. It can detect attacks, and it can also protect from attacks, right? So let's see that. Okay. So we're going to click on the attacks folder. So for which I think, this lab environment is not ideal, clearly, right? So I'm going to show some other lab environment while I can. Give me a second here. Okay. So let's see. Okay. Give me one more second while I try to get this out. All right. There it is. Okay. So we are going to a different demo environment, and we are clicking on attacks. And again, so this demo environment has lots of simulations and stuff like that. So it may fetch more data. While that is doing that, I'm going to kick off that in another demo environment, which also has lots of data, right? So which is why I guess it's taking a little bit time. So let's kind of wait a bit here. All right. So I'm going to quickly stop sharing and then check on these applications for a second, right? So we should be back up in a bit. Okay. All right. So let's get here and the attacks one more time. So Chris, can you confirm that you're able to see the screen?
Not seeing anything on your screen yet.
Okay, no problem. All right, so let's fix that. All right, how about now?
I just wanted to point out there's also a bunch of links that I sent out and the resources.
So all good, Chris? Okay, great. All right, so the thing is, so we are talking about secure application, and we're talking about security and stuff, right? So it so happens, right, for security reason, right, the session's time out. Okay, so we were on a demo instance where I was demonstrating the functionality where the permission needed is the secure application configure permission, right? So remember that we were able to see a few more items here like administration and alerts and policies and stuff like that. So now, while we spend time on that environment, all right, the other two environments were just view access, and there are a lot more attacks to share with you. Those two environments, basically sessions are timed out, right? So anyway, well, the point here is when we are talking about security, it's good to actually demonstrate security in real world, how it is working and how it should work. Sorry about the minor inconvenience there where these sessions timed out. Anyway, so we are back on track, attacks, okay? So now in here, we can filter the attacks for your applications, right? In different ways, based on, hey, did any attack exploit the system? Well, so it looks like there are so many of those, right? And then we can actually see whether any of them were blocked. So now I kept saying, right? I kept saying, oh, it can detect and also protect. Okay, now, so this is the protection, right? So there was an attack and it was blocked. Okay, it was not the application was not exploited. All right. Now, so let's kind of double click into that and see what is this about. All right, so it has a lot of information. This is the application which was attacked was this application, AD e-commerce. Everybody in the AppDynamics world know what a business transaction is. And the business transaction that is attacked is checkout. Okay. And it has information about the tier, all that stuff. What kind of attack it is? Attack type is remote code execution. All right, fine. Okay, so what happened here? So you've detected it. You're saying what application and other details. And then what actually happened? When did it happen? There it is. All the details, as I said, right? Node and the event that triggered, okay, this policy, right, of blocking, which has effectively resulted in blocking of that attack. What was that? Somebody tried to do a cat/etc password. All right. So now then it has a lot more information. It has the client IP and it comes from another Cisco service product, right? Now, see, this is the advantage of secure application, right? Now, so you pay for the secure application license, but the value that it provides is a lot more than what it intrinsically provides. It provides a lot of value by way of the integration that it has with several other Cisco security products and services without you having to do or without you having to pay for those products and services, right? So the only thing you pay for is the secure application license, okay? All right, so it actually talks about, what was the process type. It was execute command, and it actually shows you the stack trace and specifically points out what was that issue, this process call, right? That was the issue. And then it said specifically what command as well. And here, what was the operation that was executed? Block. Okay, so this was because there was policy. Okay, so now we are like, oh, Senthil, you didn't talk about policy. Yes, I did not talk about policy. I want to talk about attacks first. The fact that, attacks can be detected and categorized as exploited, blocked, and attempted, right? And then we said like how one such blocked scenario would be, right? And when we looked at it, it says, yeah, I detected all this, gathered all the information about the attack, and then specifically what line was in question, okay? And then it was blocked. Now this brings the question then, how do you block, right? All right, so let's see. To show you how we can block an attack, I went to this other demo instance, right, where we have appropriate permissions, right, which is in this case, configure secure application permission, by virtue of which I'm able to see these alerts, which we talked about for the integration. Administration, we talked about this big switch. Let me show that. Big switch to enable or disable secure app for all applications. Policies, okay, which is something we did not talk about. Now, that's why we talked about the block, and then to solve the mystery of how do you block? Here we are, okay? So now secure application ships with some standard policies like these, right? And all those are set to detect. The reason is this one size may not fit all when it comes to blocking and detection. What may be the wrong behavior, incorrect behavior for one application may not necessarily be an incorrect behavior, right? Maybe your application, there is a genuine required need for it to connect to some resource outside of your network, right? Now that's a need, the requirement for your application, but for some other application that may not be the case, right? So now that's why we provide you kind of the template and canned policies which you could edit, copy, and make an informed decision to customize to block anything. All right. Okay, so now let's talk about one use case, if you would, right? So what is one such case where we would want to block it, right? So let's go into this thing which we looked at, right? Remote code execution, all right? And a policy like this is what is preventing that, right? So here we have command execution, right? And for this particular application, for a specific tier, we said block it. And after we say block it, we need to come up with a rule on what we want to be blocked, right? So now here, process or stack trace, we say the process. The process contains, or we have multiple options, right? So here we set the /etc/password and we choose block. You can either detect and report, or you can just happily ignore, all right? So anyway, so this is a way you can create a policy to block. Now, the important call out here is, okay, this rule cannot be enforced due to the identical default action setting. Okay, so yeah, because I made a duplicate thing for the demo, I'm showing this, right? So now you need to delete the other policy which just does the detect. Okay, so that is why it is saying there's a conflict. Okay, now we could look at one other such policy, okay, and then talk about use case. Okay, so now this is about a network or socket access, right? For a specific application, specific tier, we are saying block. And you see this, right? Here, the last example we talked about, we chose a process as the rule. Here, it's the stack trace. If the stack trace contains, okay, and here I'm going to just say org.apache.login.log4j.core.lookup.jndi lookup method. Now, some of you who may be familiar with the log4j would basically know that this is the call which will initiate socket connection, right? If your vulnerability is being taken advantage of in the log4j and you're not able to, patch it, it'll try to connect to an external attacker's host and then maybe download classes and whatnot, right? So we simply want to block that connection. That's what we are doing here, okay? Now again, the word of caution, right? Two things. One, you can't do any block at an application level. It has to be at a fine-grained level. Because we don't want, the last thing we want is you to break your own application by blocking all the requests that are coming into your application. So you got to make an informed decision and then test it in your lower environment and make sure that you're blocking the right service and using the right conditions, right? Because you don't want to basically prevent a customer who wants to buy for like a $10,000 product from you, right? And they're not even able to get to your site, so they're blocked for whatever reason, right? That's the last thing you want to do. So I'm just cautioning that you want to test it in your lower environment. And then the question you would ask is, hey, okay, now why would I even do this? I'll go back and repeat what I said earlier, right? See, once you know about a vulnerability, right, then the first thing to do is see whether a patch is available. Then if the patch is available, then you need to go about applying the patch. But the reality is it does take time to apply patches in real production applications because a process needs to be followed. Yes, the patch would address the security issue, but if that patch is actually causing some backward compatibility issues or it breaks some functionality, then that could be a bigger issue too, right? As I said, in the name of security, you can't basically break the functionality of an application and essentially make it inoperable, right? So what you do here in this case is, yes, one, the patch is available, but you need time. Until then, what? Do you bring the application down and lose all the revenue? Or have the application up and running and then target the specific attack scenarios and put these policies, update or create policies to block such requests which are attacking your system while you're trying to apply the patch. The other scenario, as you would have imagined, is like, yeah, the issue got discovered like 30 minutes ago, right? And then there is no patch, right? What do you do then, right? Then it will say, oh, no, bring down the application. Wow, well, if you only know the revenue of the application, if you use AppDynamics' BIQ functionality, for example, that will tell you, right? Well, you can configure it and use the functionality to tell you how much is your loss if your system is down for 10 minutes. That could be in hundreds of thousands or even millions based on the business you're on, right? So those are the scenarios where you would create such policies and block such attacks until either the patch is available or patch can be applied, tested and applied. All right, there you go. All right, so basically we talked about lots of functionality today, right? Which include how to enable at different fine-grained levels, reporting functionality, right? Just downloading JSON or CSV files based on libraries, vulnerabilities and attacks and so forth. And then HTTP integration with different systems. If you want to consolidate all the security information from secure application to a central repository where you hold security information for action by specific teams or by all teams, okay? We looked at attacks, what they are, and we also looked at how you can block those, all right? Quite a lot of stuff. I'm going to just pause here and check with Chris to see whether there are any questions at this point, because this is a pretty decent logical point to stop the session at to make time for any questions. So Chris, do we have any questions in the Q&A?
I don't see any.
Okay. All right. So what I can do, let's kind of encourage folks to add any questions in the Q&A. So just to make them thinking about any questions they may have, I'm going to quickly go over to the demo and show a couple of functionality in there. So they are in a better position to apply all this knowledge, right, as to how it is applied, right? Okay, so please type your questions in the Q&A. And for those of you who don't have questions, I'm just going to show you some real ways troubleshooting where Cisco Secure App is done. All right, so now we'll go choose an application. Okay, so you're an AppDynamics user and your application is AD e-commerce, right? And because the importance of business transaction, you go into business transactions and then you click on, say, business risk. So we say last 1 hour, I'm going to kind of widen that window to a day maybe, and business risk. So you see, because of the secure application functionality, like we talked about last week, this column comes about and it provides easily understandable risk, quantifiable risk, right? 930 in a 0 to 100 scale. And you say oh, this is a lot of business risk. And that too, on one of the important business transactions of mine. So you get in there and then look at what's happening, right? So then you see in your business transaction dashboard, in context, the security health is there, business risk is there, number of attacks, critical vulnerabilities, and so forth. So you say, okay, let me click on this business risk. I want to understand this better, all right? And then you say, okay, that is indeed high, and you understand as to what all contributed to the number, right? Then you're sold. Okay, so this is an important business transaction checkout. And then looks like all the risk factors are applicable to this. And that's why this number is so high. So now I'm sold on fixing this. Now, how do I go about fixing it? That's when you look at here for that specific business transaction. You look at the top recommended actions and you go address this. That's one thing you can go right off the bat, do it, right? So the other way is you kind of look at okay, I can do this, but I have some bandwidth to take care of 5-6 issues. Okay, so then you can either go by the CVSS score or the Cisco Security Risk Score. Okay, so let me click on that. So the Cisco Security Risk Score, beyond the CVSS score number, see, CVSS score, for those who don't know, Common Vulnerability Scoring System, which is an industry standard, though it doesn't have any notion of risk. It focuses on what is called as a technical severity, not the probability of the impact or likelihood, which is what risk is. Now, the Cisco Security Risk Score, however, takes into account lots of other information like active internet breaches, whether it's easily exploitable or not, malware exploitable, predicted exploitable, and popular target, all that based on industry research and all that which Cisco Vulnerability Management does, right? Now again, a benefit of Secure App being integrated with Cisco Vulnerability Management provides you more insight about the risk, which puts you in a better position to prioritize this issue. And then you can look at what's specific. So in this case, see this remediation, no known remediation available, right? See, this is one of the cases which I was talking about in your attacks demo where I was saying, why would you want to have a block rule in the policy, right? So there's no patch, but that is a vulnerability. What do? Right? This is an excellent example. But while at that, so I want to go back and say, give me 1 second. There it goes. Right? Go back and see whether there is something where we have a fix. So you're here. You see, we clicked on another vulnerability, and here there is an remediation. All right. All right. So I'm going to pause here. Right. So I guess, it's good because, we are at time as well. So the functionality that I was sharing at the end was something that I was sharing with the last session for those of the attendees who may not have joined last week. I just wanted to make sure that, we emphasize the importance of these quantifiable risk numbers in the form of business risk score, Cisco security score, and numbers on those lines to help them prioritize, the issues that they need to be working on, right? All right, so with that, that's the end of the demo, and I'm going to quickly show you the resources. I'm guessing Chris may have already shared them with you all, and for additional information with regard to that, and for any other questions which may have come about, over to you, Chris.
Excellent. All right, everybody can still hear me, right?
I can.
Okay. So I guess without, taking up too much more of your time, if you guys don't have any questions for us, we'll start wrapping up. I do have a couple more slides to go over, but by all means, if you guys have any feedback, you would like, to let us know what other topics or maybe a variation of the same topic you guys would be interested in, please pop it in the chat. As I've said before, this is recorded and it will be put up on our YouTube page as well, the community page for Cisco. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please. And if you guys have questions along the way, bring it up. We can backtrack a little bit. So, these are enablement sessions, but they do not necessarily get you ready for certification. So if you're interested in getting the little badges, certifications, things to build your resume, definitely go check out Cisco U. There's a wide variety of courses that you can take on demand right away for, usually for free. And then there's a lot of things that are in there for instructor-led courses with hands-on labs, etc. Good stuff. AI, data centers, networking, hardware, software, observability. I mean, security, so much stuff. Cisco is got in a little bit of everything. So let's go ahead and go to the next one. So beyond that, if you enjoyed our content today, go check out our other videos as well. All of these Expert Insight series are going to be on there as well. There are other series of videos. There's short videos, long videos, ones where we just have you almost follow along as a lab with open source content out there. It's not one that we create and maintain and such like that. So it is able to be done by anybody that is just wanting to practice, get good with the product, get good with observability and the tools that Cisco provides. Go check us out. And the website is youtube.com/@Cisco Observability. And we have a lot of good stuff there. We have comments, community enabled. Please let us know. We do run polls sometimes to ask what you guys are interested in learning. All of these are driven by feedback. So our next series coming up, is all based on feedback. This was all based on feedback, and anything more that we can do for you guys, let us know. Thank you all for joining. Senthil, amazing job, and take care, everybody.